Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the TBM crew. Today I'm here with Stephen Kozeniewski and Wile Young. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to have you here. You have a new book, right? Which is Clickers Never Die, based on the Clicker series. Yes?
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
Yes. Tell me about it. It sounds so fun.
It's basically our love letter to our
Yes.
two of our greatest heroes for us that we looked up to, and now that we were like, oh, we're just these little hometown writers, and we really admire y'all's work and whatnot. And so it was very surprising when he picked us to do it first instead of someone more established, I guess.
Somebody with talent.
Yeah, exactly.
And how is the process of working together? How do you do it? It seems difficult to work in pairs to make a book. How do you do it?
Yeah, it really is difficult because with authors being egotistical is maybe not the right word I want to use, but you have to have a certain feeling that you're correct in order to be an author and do that kind of thing. So we've actually written 2 books together now.
Okay.
And yeah, this was our second one. And I think what we've done is we've just learned each other's rhythms and that kind of thing. And what we'll usually do is sit down, ideally in person, but we live about, what do we live, about 2,000 miles apart?
Okay.
As the crow flies.
Yeah, as the crow flies. So those are rare, but whenever we can, try and sit down in person and brainstorm out a story, and then kind of we usually toss it back and forth on Word because he always tells me I'm too old-fashioned. I won't learn how to use Google Docs. So I just like to write a chapter and then hand it to him.
And what's your first book together then?
Our first book together was The Perfectly Fine House, which was our reverse haunted house story. What happens when it takes place in a world where everywhere is haunted. Every building, every car, everything has a ghost in it.
Oh,
and then they find one house that isn't. So, what's wrong with it?
That's also... And tell me a bit about your new release, about your new book.
Yeah, so Clickers Never Die.
Yes.
We've had this question a lot. So first of all, if you've never read another Clickers book before, you'll be fine. It's a reboot. But if you're an old fan, and you've been reading Clickers books for 25 years, you're going to find a lot of Easter eggs. You're going to find a lot of references to stuff, and we think you'll enjoy it. It'll enhance your enjoyment. And basically, what we did, I came up with this idea of having kind of the James Cameron in the beginning of Titanic, and he's going out and he's searching for something, and he's finding this history of clickers.
Yes.
And then Wile's idea was about the history. I'll let him tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah. So for mine, it was this kind of thing of what is the exact bond between the Dark Ones and the clickers? How do they come together? How does man factor into it? And what are they actually doing? And how does that affect the world going forward? And especially when it comes to the themes that we came up for this, was one of our themes was like environmental devastation, global warming, that kind of thing. And it takes place, my section of the story took place at the Battle of Guadalcanal in World War II in the Pacific. And if you know anything about that battle, there's the channel between the islands there is called the Iron Bottom Sound because so many ships sunk there. So we were sitting there when we first came up with our pitch. I was like, what if all these ships, they're hitting the sea floor in such a short amount of time and driving these clickers onto land in the middle of this battle?
Yes.
And we went from there.
And what beyond the clickers, what do you think is your biggest influence as a writer?
That's a good question.
Mm.
Cause you want to lead off? It'll take me a second. I've got one already, but I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that he and I are pretty sure that we both share Brian Keene as one of our big inspirations. Would you
Yes.
agree?
Yeah, definitely. Brian and George Romero. We're both big zombie guys. And I'm a big sci-fi guy. I always liked Douglas Adams. I probably read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy 100 times.
And in the movie scene, what is your must? Not
Well,
as much as influence, but what do you enjoy? If you had to choose one or two movies, which one would be?
okay. Well, I'll give you two different ones. One of my favorite movies is Unforgiven,
Okay.
which is a Western that's just like stylistically so sparse and perfect. And I'm just a huge Western nerd. And probably my favorite horror movie is The Return of the Living Dead, the cheesy 80s comedic one.
We all have a cheesy movie, which we love.
Yeah.
Hey,
We all
Return of
have
the
that
Living
one.
Dead is awesome. I don't care what anybody says. Honestly, that would be one of my favorites too. I love Return of the Living Dead. Can't get enough of it. I also really enjoy the 1988 remake of The Blob. I can't get enough of that movie. I think I watched that movie 6 times 2 years ago. It's one of those comfort movies for me. And I'm a big Western nerd too. If
Yes.
anyone knew that.
Yes.
And so I think my favorite Western, Unforgiven's a really good one. I really like High Plains Drifter. Just the brutality of that movie was kind of the anti-Western at the time. It was great.
Mm. And writing your book, do you have a favorite scene which you had fun? If you had to choose one, like I loved writing this.
Well, I can tell you what my favorite scene to write was. I don't know how well it came together, but I wanted to do a sex scene between a dark one, which is kind of like the creature from the Black Lagoon,
Yes.
with the serial number scraped off, and a human. Because I was thinking to myself, I was like, it is, I guess it's technically bestiality, but they're also these very cosmic ancient monsters. And I watched The Shape of Water, and I felt like he kind of, there was definitely that romantic element, but I feel like he pulled back from the full-on erotic pornographic aspect of it. And I was like, I want to write this. I want it to be sexual and spiritual and physical. And I really enjoyed writing that scene. I have no idea how well it did or anything. How about you, Wiley?
Well, there were two. There was one that you wrote that I really, really enjoy, which is a sort of history of the Clicker series in author form. It's like these soldiers, the Clickers are coming, they're fighting them. They're like, "Sir, Williams is dead." It's like, "Well, okay, King, get in there. And when you two die, I'm gonna get 2 idiots to replace you." I really enjoyed that scene. Now, the favorite one that I had to write, I think, is the part where the Clicker finally the Clickers kill Willard, the priest, or not the priest. He's not the preacher that's with them, the religious soldier, because he was originally based on a character that I absolutely hated from another book that I wrote. So it was really fun to kill him in that moment.
I think you writers have lots of fun killing people in your books in different ways. How do you think you have evolved as writers from the beginning to now? What is the greater lesson you have learned?
I think for me, I've gotten better with really filling out characters. A lot of mine from the beginning when I first started were kind of, I wouldn't say cardboard cutouts, but it's like here's their one like character personality trait, and we're gonna like just write everything around that personality trait.
Yeah.
And now just kind of fleshing them out into their various strengths and flaws, and we don't have to center everything on, ooh, this is the sarcastic guy. Look how sarcastic he is. That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Stephen?
Yeah. It's funny that you asked that right after the other question, because I feel like I've really tried to dig down. And I remember when I first started writing, I was always very plot driven, and I was like, okay, the character does this, and then he does this, and then he does this, and then he does the next thing, because I wanted the story to go along. And now I try and take things a little bit slower. People were never having sex. People were never falling in love. People were never just like going off to have a cigarette or doing any of that kind of stuff that displays their character, because
Yes.
they were always like, well, let's get to the next action set piece. So I feel like I'm kind of trying to take a breath and have a little less story and a little more personality.
So you both relate to the characters. Is there any character you are fond of your books? Not only of this one, like I have this character which I'm in love with. Do you have one?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So my character from the Magpie Coffin, Salem Covington, the Black Magpie, I really fell in love with that character, hence why I'm currently writing out an entire universe Bible for him, just to map out his story from the beginning to the end. Whereas when I first wrote him, it was, I'm writing you for a cheap buck, a quick paycheck. And now here we are.
And you, Stephen?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Wiley. Maybe we should make an announcement if my answer turns out to be similar to yours. But one of my favorite characters that I like to write from my book, The Hematophages, is the villains, the Hematophages, because they're such over the top. They say things and they think things that people never would, because they're aliens and they have this very alien viewpoint, and they're just so passionate and hateful and angry, and they just like go absolutely over the top on stuff that like even your most cheesy anime villain would not say on Earth. But speaking of that, well, Wiley, I know you've got 2 announcements today, but did you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got I don't know how you would call this, like a verbal deal to write the crossover, the official crossover between Salem and the Hematophages and so it's going to be the Black Magpie versus Hematophages. And so far we've come up with Kaz wrote a treatment for it, and it's pretty good so far. I really enjoy it. We're still tweaking it, but it's going to be so over the top, and it's still going to have all the darkness and splatter you want, while still keeping to its premise that is innately wonderful of a cowboy fighting aliens.
Yes, that sounds so cool and so fun. I'm sure it will be. With your expertise, if you had to give an advice to new authors, a mistake you would avoid or something you have learned, what would it be?
The advice I always want to give to new authors is to research your publishers, research your business partners, and remember that you are not a supplicant. You are not a client or anything. Remember that these people are your business partners. And if, okay, I get it. Maybe Hachette, has a lot of cachet in the industry, and, you kind of have to do what they say. But for the most part, make sure that the people you're working with are trustworthy. Make sure you've researched, you've gone to, Writer Beware, all that good stuff. You've reached out to people like me and Wile, their authors, made sure they're happy. There's a lot of sharks out there. There are, and I've almost been screwed over a couple of times.
Oh, really?
And I like to think I'm a pretty safe person who does his research, and I have still almost been screwed over a couple of times by sharks. There are a lot of sharks in this industry, and be careful. Maybe that's a little more businessy than writery, but
No, it's an
It's
amazing
part of it.
advice. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Sorry.
I said the writing part's easy. The business part is the part that you have to really kind of learn how to do. But similar to his, I say the best advice I can tell you is you don't have a deal until you have a signed contract.
Hmm.
Until that contract is signed, you're writing on spec and treat it that way.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to don't be afraid to write what you want to write versus what you think the person that you're writing this for wants.
And you made me think now, in regards to readers and the reactions, because in the horror community, sometimes there's, the content can have a lot of triggers and a lot of, how do you deal or process bad reviews when they come up? Because I know this is really a wall sometimes to new authors, that they are maybe not afraid, but maybe afraid of people thinking that their work is not good enough, or sometimes a bad review just knocks down some writers. So how do you process that, or how have you learned to process them?
Very, very thick skin, honestly. You're going to get bad reviews. That's just part of the game. And you just have to kind of let them roll off, and then realize that some people might be reading your stuff looking for something that's not there for them, and it might just not hit them. There's one bad review that stuck with me that was like, this was not as transcendent and amazing and spiritually fulfilling as I wanted it to be. And I was reading going, this is a story about crab monsters, right? Very, very like crab monsters eating people. So I don't know. You don't really think about it. Good reviews are great. And, as writers, like he said, we're not
Yes.
very egotistical, but we do snort praise like it's Coke.
Yes, I agree with that. And you, Stephen?
okay. Well, I'll tell my obligatory one since he told his. I once got a review for the Ghoul Archipelago that was a 0-star review that said this book had no redeeming qualities, and I wish I could have given it less than 0 stars. But so here's what I'm going to tell the listeners. And it's funny you bring this up, Mar, because I see this all the time on Books of Horror and, Splatter Club and all those good book groups online. Listen, guys, you have to love your bad reviews. You have to embrace them, embrace the suck. This is part of it. If you ever want to be anything like a writer and not just write things and be Emily Dickinson and never publish them, you're going to get bad reviews. You're going to have to learn to not only accept them, but to love them. And you are going to get rejected so much, not just in the review process, when you're seeking an agent, when you're seeking a publisher, when you're seeking reviews, you're just going to get rejected. And I'll tell you something that is 1,000,000 times worse than a bad review, which is radio silence. So those are your options, okay? Think about your favorite food in the world. If you love chocolate, I'll tell you something. Lots of people hate chocolate.
Yeah.
If you love tuna fish, lots of people hate tuna fish. And there are people that will just read this stuff and be like, man, I didn't like it. I picked up an extreme horror book, even though all I read is Regency romance. I'm going to really crush this author. And I'm like, just...
Yes.
And do not, for the love of God, do not respond to them.
Yep.
Never call me, Facebook me, or Wiley. I don't want to put you on the spot, Wiley, but call me and complain about it. Do not put anybody on blast on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere. Do not complain about your bad reviews. Just talk about it offline with your author friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, even more because sometimes what I say to some authors that they are like that, feeling bad for an awful review, sometimes I think that the reviews that are more hurtful, they are not really how would you say it, reliable. I mean, for example, when I lots of people send me books and films and games to try and all of that. I can maybe some kind of horror or a book or something. It's not my cup of tea, but I can see the good things on it. I mean, I'm not going to say this book is awful because it's not my thing, you know. I can see the good things on it. Like, I don't know, maybe I prefer the psychological horror and not the blood and guts, but it's fun, it's well written, the plot is so solid, I love the characters, you know. So when you get a bad review that hurts you, it's not really a review that has any validation, I think. So maybe you can look at it that way. Like, I like you said, I wanted the extreme horror and it's not extreme. Well, it depends. Sometimes before I watch or read a book, I always search for reviews to see what people are thinking of it. So I have an idea already in my mind. And many times there's people saying, oh, I had to put the book down because it's too extreme. And I really like, well, yeah, it's fun, but it's not stealing my sleep. And not because of that, I'm writing a bad review saying it's disappointing, you know? So I think sometimes bad reviews, I laugh with them because I think it's not really a review. It's just someone complaining. If they go to the store, they're going to complain about something. And in the car, they're going to yell at the person next to them. So, yep. As you say, not answering to them is the best you can do about it.
Do you know how many reviews, and Wiley, I bet you've had something similar. Do you know how many reviews I've received that are like, Amazon was slow getting this to me, 1 star? Or the postman damaged this in transit, 1 star.
This isn't the magpie coffin I ordered. I was looking for the mystery.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's as you said, when you're creating something or you're doing something, it's not the only spot you get reviews or rejected, or I mean, you're creating things, so you're exposed to people's opinion. And I think you have to focus on how you grow, and if you get you get building reviews, that's the ones that you have to get. Maybe do you rely on beta readers?
Some. I rely on very, very few beta readers. There's very few people I trust with my stuff, just because, one, it's hard to find beta readers that will actually read them in a timely manner, and I'm guilty of this too. So it's not like I am very, very bad on reading schedules sometimes, but there are a few. My wife specifically, she reads everything I do, and she will tell me flat out, she's like, "This is stupid. You need to rewrite this." And that's what you need.
That's what you want.
That's what you need and what you want.
Yeah. Maybe sometimes what I found that, listening to people, because I'm not a writer, but that in the beta readers sometimes they don't know if to pay attention to what they say or not. Because, yeah, maybe you wrote something or a scene or that they think it's slow or they think it's not necessary, but maybe it is, and maybe it's good. So it has like a double side, right? To have people giving the opinion on your book. Maybe you have to trust yourself. Where's the line?
Yeah. Yeah, when I've relied on beta readers, I've run into 1 or 2 issues, which is that they either say, yeah, it's great, go ahead, which is like useless, or they want to tear everything apart and be like, everything you did is wrong, start over. It's like you said, Mara, like there's got to be a happy medium. Like, you know, I'm glad, Wiley, that your wife can do that for you.
Yeah, she's very critical, but only of the parts that actually need the criticizing. She'll be like, this was very good, this wasn't as good, this needs to be taken out completely, that kind of thing.
And now I was thinking, because you made me think of a movie that I watched recently. Have you watched any recent movie, any recent horror movie now and lately, that the ones are making, or in Amazon Prime, I mean in Amazon Prime Video from Amazon or Netflix, or what do you think of the new wave of horror that we have?
Well, I think like all horror has ever been is that it's there's hit and misses. I recently watched X by
Yes.
Ty West, and I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic.
Yes.
It was, it was. I love the characters, love the setting, and the last line of the movie kind of made me laugh a little bit. I felt kind of undercut it a little bit, but at the same time, the rest of the movie was just what I wanted, and it was great.
Mm-hmm. Stephen?
Yeah, I think it's really cool that we're finally having some really intellectual, I guess, what are they calling it? Elevated horror.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I know people don't like that term or whatever, but watching things like Midnight Mass, or this is a little further back, but like The Lighthouse or The Witch, or even The Shape of Water we just mentioned. I know that's 5-6 years ago, but it's really cool that people are finally coming out to see these things that are like well acted and intellectual and bringing some questions. I think it's really cool that horror is finally kind of getting its time to shine like that.
Yes, actually we have this two kinds of horror, where we have the commercial, right? The commercial one that is making all the remakes and all the weird stuff. And the best I have watched is always from underground horror.
Mm-hmm.
Always. It's the ones that grab me and that I stop doing everything I'm doing to watch that movie. It's always the underground. So I think maybe just like a splatterpunk, it's growing, because a few years ago I didn't see as much splatterpunk as now, and I'm so happy that everything is growing more organic, right? I have that feeling that horror is more organic, more natural, more less commercial. I don't know if you have the same feeling.
Yeah, what's Brian always say? Like the universe has a way of coming back around, or whatever.
Yeah.
Things come in waves. It'll come and have its moment, die off, and then have its renaissance again 20, 30 years from now, and the eternal recurrence, as it were. And there's nothing wrong with it. Just there's people are like, well, horror is dead now. It's like, it's not. It's just resting for a bit, and not even really
not.
resting.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yes?
It's really cool that splatterpunk's having such a renaissance now, with guys like Daniel Volpe and Aaron Beauregard and Carver Pike and Duncan Ralston and Triana. Was that who you said, Triana?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and Wes Southard. We gotta say Wes Southard, or he'll get mad. You guys didn't mention me. That's my Wes impersonation. But
it's fine.
I'll toot my own horn and I'll say, 4 or 5 years ago when I got nominated for a Splatterpunk award, nobody was doing it. It was such a like underground of the underground, and I feel like maybe it's kind of reemerging.
Yes. And where can readers find you? Where are you? Your books.
All my stuff.
Yourself, yes.
All my stuff is on Amazon, so I don't have anything out of print. So all my works are there and available. And my two most recent ones are Clickers Never Die, written with my inept disciple Stephen Kozeniewski. I'm just playing. And my other one, Shades of the Black Stone, which is a novella. It's kind of like if you took The Shining and set it in the South. It's pretty good. This town, this monument goes up overnight made of black stone, and it takes these people's inner prejudices and hatreds and makes them actual specters that haunt them. So I enjoyed reading that. Not even reading that one. I'm having a brain. It's been a long day.
Writing
that one.
And you, Stephen?
Well, I always say if you can spell it right, you can probably find me online. So mark it down.
We'll
but
link
yeah,
it. Don't worry.
yeah. I've got everything is on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all the booksellers. My last original piece, like Wile said, was Clickers
Mhm.
Never Die,
Mhm.
which I carried the lion's share of the work doing. And big exciting news coming back June 9th, 2022. The
Okay.
Hematophages and Skin Wrapper under one cover, back in print.
Oh,
So
awesome.
go out and grab it.
Mhm. Absolutely. And we'll link everything below so everyone can check out your work. And
No, seriously, go pick up the Hematophages. It's fantastic because I've read a lot of sci-fi over the years, and the thing about sci-fi is you have to really flesh out the universe, and Cause does that very, very, very well. Has its own slang, its own lingo, its own feel and vibe. And it's like if you took the neon 80s, put them in space, and added things that drank your blood. It's great.
Well, thank you. Make sure to pick up that stone thing too.
That other thing.
It's so nice to talk to you, but we're running out of time. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yes, thanks for having us, Mar.
Do you have a message for our listeners?
As you walk down that road of life, just remember that even if it says non-toxic, doesn't mean you should eat it.
Remember, kids, always recycle to the extreme.
Yeah.
Okay, then thank you so much, and keep me updated on your projects. Okay, I want to know how everything is going, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks.
Thank you again, Mar.
Okay, have a lovely day.
You too.
Evening.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.